Hello, Podsmashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-Bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer.
We are your hosts, Penguin and Termite.
And we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together the ideas of things that you care about with video games.
Yeah! Tonight we are drinking Blue Moons.
I have no idea what you just said.
Blue Moons.
But we're drinking Blue Moon.
Blue Moon. Yes.
Okay.
Just the Belgian white classic. Just
It is the
something nice
classic.
and crisp and sweet. And
It's a go-to.
I don't know, someone left some at my house after visiting, so...
You cheapskate.
Shout out Justin. Thanks for the beer.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks for funding our beer episode today. So yeah, I am a cheapskate.
Free beer.
Free beer.
I'm gonna-
free for me.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. It's free for me, too. I didn't pay for it.
Yeah, that's true. Tonight we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic. We kind of teased on it. It's a very politically charged topic
Apparently
in general.
it is. Who knew?
Very controversial, so it should be interesting to talk about. So we're going to try to keep it as apolitical as possible. But we're going to be talking about unions, labor unions specifically.
Should the video game industry unionize?
Yeah, so specifically as it applies to workers in the video game industry, workers in general.
Yep.
So we're going to be talking about more than just developers, though we will be talking a lot about developers as well. But we'll be talking about like customer service reps for video games or marketing people. Like, do people who work in the video game industry deserve to have the protections that are afforded to a lot of other employees?
Yep.
Types of employees. So it'll be an interesting one. And so we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to digging in.
Yes.
But
it'll be
before we
fun.
dig into that, let's just kind of spend some time just kind of catching y'all up on what goings-ons there are. And
Anthem is not bricking your PlayStation.
Yes.
Calm down.
yeah, so to start with, last episode we talked about how Anthem was bricking consoles. And new information has come to light that has allowed us to redact that. It's not actually bricking consoles. It is causing them to have to go through a lengthy process to get the data?
Yeah, so the PlayStation's crashing in such a way that it's behaving as if you had unplugged the PlayStation mid-game. Like, pulled it out from the wall. Just unplug it. And that can corrupt some of the live memory being written to the disk and not with the operating system. So the bug is so deep that you have to boot the PlayStation into safe mode and rebuild the database to straighten everything out. Console is fine, and then the operating system boots back up again. Everything's normal.
Yeah, so there is a way to, if your console quote-unquote bricks, there is a way to get around it. But nevertheless, still shouldn't be happening. We still think it's a bad thing. They did patch, the latest patch that came out said that they fixed a lot of the crashing errors.
That's good.
But, you know.
Yeah, there was that live stream
I haven't
with
actually
the
touched
developers,
it since then, so I haven't really touched it.
and they talked about a bunch of bugs and fixes.
Yeah.
It was very underwhelming.
I haven't really touched it since Devil May Cry came out, so.
Ooh,
yeah.
we need to do another What Do You Learn?
What do you learn? Well, I'll be talking about Devil May Cry, spoilers, and favorite things, so.
Okay.
We'll get there. Cool. Well, there are a couple other things. We want to hit a couple other like news highlights really quick because there's so much going on, guys. Like
It's a lot.
the ones that we listed, we got together today and started talking and brought up like 5 additional things that have happened just in the last few days.
Yeah, it's
that
been insane.
We're even just gonna omit right now just because it's like some of it's like we picked the ones that are like the most founded or things that are like actually announced. So
to avoid rumors and
just to
speculation.
avoid too much rumors and
Teases.
speculation. But also if we included everything that's been happening, it just would be a 2-hour-long episode of us talking about news. So, so the first thing I wanted to hit is there was a tease. We had already talked last week about how there's a rumor going around that Borderlands 3 will be announced at PAX East at the end of the month, the end of March, the end of this week, actually, by the time you guys are listening to this. To support that rumor, there was a tweet from the official Gearbox page and Randy Pitchford, the CEO. Both the Twitter accounts tweeted it looks like a
highway exit sign.
Yep. It says March 28th, Boston, Massachusetts, which is the date of PAX East.
Yep.
It's exit number 3.
Yep.
Borderlands 3.
But it could also be E3 too.
But that doesn't make sense with the date.
I know.
And then it's like scrawled in blood on a highway sign, and the scene around the sign looks like it's cut right from Borderlands.
Yep.
Like it looks like a cell shaded desert.
It looks just
area.
like the highway sign that a psycho hits his head on and driving under.
Exactly.
It's that whole
so it's very,
there.
very heavily implying Borderlands. So that's cool. There was another tease too that wasn't quite. It was a little bit more vague, but Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. We're all squealing about that.
I can't wait.
So
it's going to be awesome.
We'll find out, you guys, in just a couple days.
Any bit Podsmash might disappear when Borderlands 3 comes out because there will be no hosts for which to talk into these mics.
We'll just be doing the podcast from while streaming Borderlands instead. Yeah, that's exactly
that's
what
a good idea.
Yeah.
Put a pen in that one.
The other big things that are happening, do you want to hit this one?
Yeah. So the Microsoft had another Inside Xbox, which is kind of like a Nintendo Direct episode.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of stuff that they're talking about, new initiatives they're doing and all this cool stuff. One of the biggest things I'm extremely excited about is the Halo Master Chief Collection is finally getting Halo Reach.
Which is weird because Master Chief isn't in Halo Reach.
Yeah, I know.
It bothers me a little bit for that reason.
That's probably why Reach wasn't included in it to begin with.
Original, yeah.
Because even ODST, which doesn't have Master Chief in it, was added as an add-on content.
Did they?
And you can get it now, but it's like $5.
Yeah.
So they're talking about Reach being available for free for all Game Pass subscribers, and the multiplayer aspect free for everyone.
Interesting.
It will be a premium add-on content for everyone else.
Gotcha.
So me, not a Game Pass subscriber, will have to pay for Reach. But it's also coming to PC. All of the Master Chief collections coming to PC.
Let's rewind real quick. It's not just coming to PC, because theoretically you could play Master Chief Collection on Xbox Play Anywhere.
It's not.
You can't? Okay,
certain titles are Play Anywhere enabled.
Gotcha.
Most of them to the point where it seems obvious that all of them are, but it's not.
Well, to be fair, when you get it would make sense that I'm like, okay, you could play it like through Windows 10 or whatever, the Xbox store. That would make sense to me. But the biggest news about the whole Master Chief Collection coming to PC is it's coming to Steam.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
You'll be able to buy it. So Microsoft and Steam are collaborating to make that happen. That's pretty crazy. When was the last time a console exclusive game came to Steam? I can't think of it off the top of my head, though. I'm sure there are examples.
The closest thing is Diablo 1 was just put on GOG.
Game Over Games.
That's not Game Over Games.
Nope.
That's the guy we interviewed.
Shout
out to you if you're listening
to
us.
Good old games. It's good old games.
Yeah, it's good old games.
So what, again, other implications that people have pointed out in regards to Master Chief Collection coming to Steam is that it's not coming to the Epic Games Store. So it's kind of a big middle finger to the Epic Games Store. Even if it's not intended to be that, it kind of indirectly becomes that because it's showing up on Steam. So there's been all kinds of memes floating around Reddit today about
I mean, who knows? Steam could have been a fire lit under its butt, for lack of a better word, for Steam to like go find some sort of big IP, something crazy that they can do that's unprecedented, and maybe they were motivated by Epic Games to acquire this, and this is a result of that whole debacle, which is cool, because that's what I was excited about, to see what is Steam going to do next.
What's Steam going to do in response, and that's a big one. I mean, Halo is one of the most beloved video game franchises of the past 20 years.
And only 1 and 2 had ever been on PC in the past, so now we get 3, 4... ODST and Reach.
Yeah, wow.
And all of its multiplayer.
Halo. Let me see your Halo.
I have Master Chief Collection digitally. So if it comes to Steam and I get to play it because I already own it on Xbox, if I link my Xbox Live account to my Steam account and I get that game, it's going to be pretty sweet. Yeah. And I might actually dabble and fire up the old dusty PC.
The old dusty PC.
And learn how to play keyboard and mouse games again.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah.
All right. Other thing that became recently available in the past week or so was PS4 Remote Play is now playable on your mobile phone. iOS, I think it's only on iOS right now.
Yep, Apple.
Yeah. So you can play your PlayStation games on your, like, you can stream them to your phone now. And it's kind of cool too, because it has the buttons on the screen. So you don't actually have to, with Remote Play on your PC, you have to plug in a controller in order to do it.
Right.
And theoretically, meaning if you only have one controller like I do, you'd have to like have that controller with you. So, I mean,
don't you all have phones?
Do you not have phones? Yeah. It's nice. My sister-in-law, Brianna, so shout out to Brizzle. She was saying that like she's stoked that now she can just turn her PlayStation on with her phone though.
Yeah.
She's thrilled about that. So, it's a cool update now. It seems to be Sony's, I would almost argue that it's almost Sony's attempt at combating not only mobile gaming, because if you can just play your PlayStation games on your phone, why not?
Right.
But also one might argue that it's their attempt at kind of cutting into the Switch market too, because like, oh, I can play just like you can play your Switch.
So this works on your wireless network when you don't have Wi-Fi? Is that like if I'm on a train on my iPhone, I can hook up to my PS4 at home and play stuff?
So if it's like Remote Play on the PC, then yes, like I can remotely. So you do have to have a good enough internet connection in your home to have a basic upload speed. I think it's like 5 megabytes upload speed minimum.
Okay.
So the PlayStation has to be connected to a Wi-Fi network that's able to upload at a minimum rate. But then from there, as long as you have the app on whatever device you're using it on, you should be able to play it. Like I could be at work with my laptop and theoretically play my PlayStation, but it would be streaming it, meaning that the PlayStation would be playing. Like if someone were to break into my house, they would see a ghost playing the PlayStation, you know? So,
and
so
then
I
there's
can't
probably
use it
some
because,
input lag, and it's probably not perfect. I imagine.
I actually was playing I was testing it because I'm testing out.
You have an iOS device?
No, I don't know about the iOS. I was testing out just on my laptop with Remote Play.
Yeah,
and it seemed to be pretty. Like I literally was sitting there on my PlayStation and with my Remote Play.
Where was your laptop?
And it was in the same room.
Same Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I want to know what it's like. Different networks.
Yeah.
Like if you were at work, I know it's probably not good. Okay, if you're at Starbucks and you have your laptop and you can connect to your home PS4, is that possible?
Yeah, it should be theoretically possible.
And you'd have Starbucks Wi-Fi and your home Wi-Fi. But then the iOS devices,
I wonder if it
cellular?
compensates for the input lag, though. You know what I mean?
There's probably some input lag compensation algorithm in there somewhere.
Yeah. Anyways,
sweet.
So yeah, you can do it on your phone. You can now play your PlayStation on your phone, though. That's kind of cool.
At the very least, you can at least remote into the operating system and download games and look at your friends list, check out your trophies, and bounce.
Nice. All right. Similarly, kind of in the reverse order, Microsoft's collaboration with Steam is going further, and I was reading an article today that you'll be able to soon, I don't know if it's out yet, but you'll be able to download an app on your Xbox that will allow you to play Steam games on your stream them from your PC to your console. So if you have a library, if you're like me and you have a library of Steam games that you don't really have that much of an interest in playing anymore because you'd rather have the console experience, you can have the console experience now and stream them from your PC.
Boom. I'm
going
to play them new Turok games, the remakes. I'm going to play them on my Xbox on my basement couch with my controller.
Yeah, you'll be able to do that.
I'm going to try it.
Yep.
I'm going to see what happens.
Pretty cool.
Maybe I'll report back. Another Steam alliance, right? Because it's a Steam thing.
Yeah. It's
just like the Master Chief
Xbox,
Collection.
Microsoft and Steam are getting in pretty close.
Man, this is like
Microsoft is just making Microsoft is sending olive branches out to like everyone.
They are
recently. Their collaboration recently has been pretty
everything
crazy.
that they have been doing since they've lost the console wars is just setting up chips to when they can just knock them all down.
Yep.
And they're going to dominate the next generation. Like unless Sony can but that's the problem is like Sony is so far ahead, they don't need to do a lot of these things that's driving Microsoft. I don't know what's going on with all this streaming stuff.
It's so frustrating.
But it's getting crazy.
Yeah, it's getting pretty nuts. But the biggest deciding factor for the next console generation is going to, unfortunately, be exclusive still, though. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still going to buy...
It's almost like this two-pronged approach. There's the where can I play your exclusives, and then what are your exclusives?
Yeah.
And this whole streaming stuff is like, can I play your stuff on my phone? Can I play your stuff on my Switch? Can I play your stuff on my PC?
Yeah.
And it's all the same. And it's where am I just logging? Like a screen is just a window into my games.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like at what point are we just going to completely devoid of video game consoles? I mean, there's a diskless Xbox coming out next month. That's announced. Yeah. That's Microsoft.
Was it actually officially announced? I thought it was still just a rumor.
There's a picture of it and all that. And
yeah. So that's a big announcement that we haven't talked about too.
It's definitely official. It's not a rumor.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's a picture of it.
They're releasing a. Now the price is the big question mark that everybody's nobody knows what the price is because that's going to be the clincher. Like,
it's got to be cheap.
I'd buy. I don't get me wrong. I like a nice library of games that I can show off. Yeah, a nice little bookshelf of games. But you set the console price low enough, I'll be tempted to buy an all digital Xbox.
I know.
If it's so I heard a rumor of people that were saying that they should release it for $99.
Wow.
And then bank on the fact that people are just gonna like take their savings and funnel them right into buying more games.
Yeah.
So
which is Game Pass.
It's like they may lose on the hardware, but they would would be buying. They would be counting on the fact that people would buy Game Pass essentially and like have it for years because they'd be like, wow, I only spent $99 on this console. I might as well. Like, so if they do something like that, that would be a huge, bold move, but it might pay off in the long term. That's insane. I would consider buying an Xbox, all digital Xbox for $99.
Yeah.
So
you don't have a library to worry about.
Yeah. So, I mean, trying to rewind to give the kind of big picture, Microsoft announced that they were going to be releasing a console that would have no disk drive in it. And so it would be a digital only console. So you wouldn't be able to put discs in it anymore, so it would eliminate physical copies. This is what they originally wanted to do with the Xbox One in the first place.
Yeah, 2013 when they announced
this is the console that they wanted to release 6 years ago. Or 7 years ago.
Yep.
But now they're getting around to it. But the theory is that they'll be able to, because they won't have a disk drive, they'll be able to manufacture it at a lower cost and like I said, they'll be banking on the fact that people will be buying games for it, essentially. So,
and Game Pass is a service that's $10 a month like Netflix, and it gets you an entire library of Xbox games.
It's like 500 games.
Yeah, and what I didn't think about until recently is all of those microtransactions within those games that they monetize, Microsoft gets a cut on.
Yeah.
So the extreme player base that they get for free, essentially, is building the same kind of model that Fortnite and Apex Legends, that free-to-play, race to the bottom, capitalize on microtransactions and make your money on the back end with DLC purchases and things, because you don't get all that DLC for free, but you can buy DLC and it applies to your Game Pass games. So Microsoft can theoretically make money, and they've even claimed, without actually reporting the numbers, that they make more money, and those Game Pass sales drive physical game sales. So like the physical game sales of like Forza Horizon 4 and Sea of Thieves and now Crackdown 3 are higher because of Game Pass. So word of mouth, friends jumping in and playing it. It's Microsoft is they're something you guys, everyone should be paying attention to if you care about the gaming industry at all and the future of gaming. Microsoft is going to be huge next gen.
It's gonna be hopefully, actually, only because of what it means for the gaming industry, only because it means we're getting better quality products if this is the case. I genuinely want to be torn. I don't want to go into the next console generation and be like, oh, I'm getting a PlayStation just by default.
Right.
I probably will, but that doesn't change the fact that I genuinely want to be torn about the fact that, like, man, I really want an Xbox, because there's something exciting about that. Because with the last generation, it was literally just like, oh, PlayStation 1. Like, everyone's going to get PlayStations now. So
the weirdness, though, and I hope this changes too, is both the PS3, Xbox 360 generation and the Xbox One, PS4 generation were determined at announcements and launches. Like, they were everything was set in stone right from the get-go. And I hope this generation, they both come out the gate strong. We don't know what we want. Everyone's like, what do we get? And then, decisions
South
later.
South Park had a great episode about,
it was so good. It was so funny.
And they set it up like Game of Thrones, but you had like two camps.
It was Black Friday.
All the kids trying to buy the Xboxes and the other kids buying the
PlayStations.
And there was betrayals and all that good fun stuff. It was a great one. It was a precursor, and the whole like 3-part episode was just one big advertisement for the Stick of Truth. Amazing. It was. So, all right, let's go ahead. There was one last final point we had, but we'll save that for next week or something. It was just another news thing. Let's go ahead, and even though dropping news items is not our favorite thing,
doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Yeah, doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Boo!
Favorite things is the first segment of our podcast where we like to kind of update you on the thing that we are super excited about that is our favorite thing for the week. So we each pick one, and do you want to go first, or do you want me to talk about Devil May Cry? I'm going to talk about Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry is my favorite thing for the week. I don't often like to default to games, but when I have a game I'm really excited about, it's going to be my favorite thing. I love it. It's so much fun.
Yes, lay it on me. What do you like about it? What's going on?
Yesterday when we talked about Capcom, we talked about how one of the things we were super excited about talking about Capcom about was how the Resident Evil 2 remake, they took something familiar and like improved upon it and changed it and brought it kind of into the like modern world with like a lot of new panache and excitement.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, Monster Hunter World did the same thing. They kind of took a familiar... like one of their familiar entries, like franchises, and they turned it into like a games as a service thing. So they kind of like, so those are like two examples of how they've changed franchises to kind of like make them more, I guess, palatable or whatever to modern sensibilities. Devil May Cry is the opposite approach. Devil May Cry is like, we are taking everything you love about this franchise and not changing a dang thing.
We're leaning into it and we're going all in.
Nostalgic. Like, I didn't expect it to be so much, like, give me so much, like, remind me so much of previous entries in the franchise, but everything down to like sound effects and the fact that it's like the only thing that's different is it's dynamic camera angles. Like it's not like a fixed camera angle like many of the previous franchises. I know they got rid of that with Devil May Cry 4, but nevertheless, the only thing that's like, I guess the only thing that having other characters and new weapons and stuff like that and new like a little bit new like combat mechanics, but the general like the game is just like you're going from like in a narrow. There's not really a lot of exploring or anything like that or open world. Linear. It's just like you're going through a linear hallway from little like arena to arena. You're fighting demons and trying to make it as stylish as possible. The story is as delightfully shallow as you would expect out of a Devil May Cry franchise with predictable twists. Like seriously, the very first thing I saw when I was watching the trailers was I was like, oh, this thing, this demon is totally going to be this character, and I was right. Like, it's like, yeah, I saw that coming with a 10-foot pole. So, it's great. The new character V is fantastic, as exciting as I thought he was going to be.
That summons animals.
Yeah. And
there's 3 animals.
I talked about a few episodes ago when we talked about companions and pets. I talked about how, like, I was looking forward to this game because it could completely change my ideas. Like, what?
Did it?
Like how pet mechanics can be in games. Completely. I'm like, yes, this is what, like, any summoner class or pet class in any game going forward is going to have to be measured against V in Devil May Cry 5 because it's so satisfying and it feels so different from Dante and Nero's playstyle that it's satisfying for a whole different reason too. So my only gripe with the game is up to this point, it's been like they've alternated characters so much that I never feel like I get like a handle on a character, like to play them for long enough that I get a really good grasp.
So they force which character per mission?
Okay. So it's like, so you'll do like 2 missions as Nero and then 2 missions as V and then 3 missions as Dante.
Dictated or moved by the story, I guess?
Yep.
Okay.
And so I'm hoping that like in future playthroughs I'll be able to pick which character I want at the beginning, even if it doesn't gel with the story. That's what I'm hoping. I don't know. I haven't beat it yet.
Okay,
so,
gotcha. There's apparently a co-op mode that's pretty weird.
I haven't I've experienced it because like at the beginning of a mission it'll be like featuring and it'll show like the person's name. Okay. It's called the cameo system, but like I never see that person playing with me. It's not like I'm there was only once. There was only one time I did a fight. It was like we were dropping. And so one of us was playing as V. I was playing as V, and the other person was playing as Nero.
That's why I asked, because you talk about characters being able to switch between characters per mission.
There was one mission in particular where I got to choose which character I wanted to be at the beginning of it, and that was the only time I ever like played alongside someone because they played the other person.
Gotcha.
And it was only for like one encounter where we fought like a bunch of knights on like a falling platform, and it was awesome. I feel like we were kicking butt together. It was pretty cool, but I don't really know how the whole system works. So it's really good game, though. And again, like I said, it just really brings back a lot of those nostalgia buttons.
Do you feel like Nero's Devil Breaker arms, like, do you feel stressed out by it? So you pick them up, you can consume them, they break, and you have to use them in the order that you find them in.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have one and you pick one up, you use it right away.
Yeah.
So does any of, like, that to me is a worrisome point. Do you have any? They
give you so many Devil Breakers. I'm more stressed about finding Devil Breakers in the wild that I can't use because I have a full magazine. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like they don't break.
I really want to use that, but I can't pick it up.
Yeah, they don't break often enough that like
you can spend your red orbs to increase.
Like you're actually encouraged. Yeah, you're also encouraged to break them. Like honestly, there's points where I'm like, I'm gonna want to break these manually.
Okay, yeah, because you can do like a super move with them.
Yeah, you can do big moves with them, but you can also even just like if you're in a tight situation, you can blow it up to get you like to knock the enemies away or whatever. So really fun, really great. My only gripe with it is that I haven't felt like I've gotten enough time on each character to really like sink my teeth into them. So I'm hoping I know they're releasing like the Bloody Palace, which will be like wave after wave of enemies, so that could be a way.
Is that the DLC that's coming
the DLC,
out free?
Yeah.
Nice.
So that will be a way to kind of like sink your teeth into one character, I imagine. Probably. But I was also kind of hoping that they would do like you could play back through it again on like New Game Plus and kind of use whatever character you want would be my hope. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
So favorite things has just become a review.
This one time, favorite things became a Devil May Cry 5 review. So, sorry. What's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is not a video game. It's my breakfast protein shakes that I've been making, my smoothies. We ran out of some of the protein, and I hadn't gone to the store to get more, and I went without them for a while. I went back to cereal, which is my vice. Cereal is my vice.
Yeah,
I love
pure sugar, but
cereal.
I love it. It's good.
Like, and we try to get the healthy ones. So we have like Kashi, and the craziest we get are like multigrain Cheerios, which are kind of low in sugar compared to like Lucky Charms.
I like multigrain Cheerios.
But I love cereal, and I'll like go through it. I always overpour my portions and eat way too much.
Yeah.
And so I know my smoothies keep me in check. So I went and got some more protein. It's a different flavor than I had before, and I switched from a vegetarian protein back to a whey protein because they were out of stock on the vegetarian one. And it's just become my new favorite thing. I love it. I look forward to it every morning. It's got frozen berries, almond butter, almond milk, and protein. Yeah. It's pretty simple, and it's delicious, and it actually does fill me. I'm hungry at 10. It's great. I'm ready for lunch at 10 a.m.
Nice.
It's fantastic. Anyway, that's my favorite thing.
Cereal. All right, let's move on to our next segment, which is
DLC.
Downloadable content is a little fun mini discussion we like to have before the episodes, kind of prime your brain pumps and just kind of get you ready to be thinking, but it's more like of a fun conversation. So
something that has no bearing on the episode itself.
Well, sometimes it does, but not tonight's. You're right. Nope. Tonight's is in honor of what we hope to be a Borderlands 3 announcement, you can tell we're super hyped for this game. I feel like this game is 2019 Smash for me. Like, I feel like 2018, I was so hyped about Smash, and 2019, I'm like, Borderlands. Anyway, so in honor of Borderlands 3, I want you to design your own Borderlands class. Like, if you could have a class in Borderlands, just basically design like what it's kind of like. I guess for Borderlands, it's just like what's its ability, and then kind of briefly hit on like what you think the talent trees in like broad spectrum would look like based on that ability.
I'm not a game designer, so it's going to be broken. Like,
that's fine.
My character
it can be broken.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of Portal. Valve's Portal.
Yeah.
And this character class, I don't know what it would be called because I'm not creative at all, would have a special that's just like Portal. And so you could either launch, maybe those are the 3 skill trees. You can focus on antagonizing your enemy with the portals, like sending them through infinite loops and then blowing them up. Or you could aid in a different skill tree. You could focus on aiding your party to escape or get into cover with your portal. And then the third skill tree, I have no idea what that would look like. So I got 2 ideas about the portals.
It makes me think of the Wraith in Apex Legends.
That's kind of where I got the inspiration from, but it's not. I don't like it.
Okay.
Like,
I see that as being like, because you know how each of the sirens kind of have different, like, at least from what we've seen so far, like Lilith was more of like she used her phase shift to stealth.
Yep.
And then Maya used her phasing abilities to phase lock.
Yeah.
This kind of makes me think of like a phase portal, like phase move.
Yeah.
Like through space. So it's kind of like a weird
sirens
mixture
are my favorite class
between the
in
two.
all of them.
So sounds like you're designing a cool new siren.
Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking of, it's kind of similar, but there's an anime that I think I've talked about on the podcast before. Like, the first one's called Fate Stay Night, and then there's one called Fate Zero. It's like a prequel. Okay. Anyways, there's a character in that called Gilgamesh. He's literally Gilgamesh from the Legends, and he has this ability where he can like open up these. It's kind of similar to what you're talking about, but he opens up this gates, and like weapons come through.
Okay.
So I'm thinking of a class that's kind of like a mixture between what you're talking about with the portals, and then the Gunzerker, where like you open up these little portals, but out of them,
maybe that's the third skill tree for my character.
Out of the portals come whatever like a copy of your gun that you're shooting, and then they shoot.
That's perfect.
Or like multiple, and then you can like get multiple copies. Yeah. Like multiple portals.
If I would have had that like in knowledge, I would have said that's my third skill tree. So there you go.
It's kind of funny that we had similar ideas, for Borderlands class. I think that would be awesome, though. So, all right, cool. Let's hope that those characters become a reality. The characters I've heard that are leaked, some of them I'm not super excited about. I'm like, I was really hoping they would do new ideas because the pre-sequel classes were so fantastic that I was hoping for more kind of creative ideas. So, but there is one of the lead classes that I've heard about is a soldier class, kind of like this, like Axton and
the most boring
Roland,
one.
The boring ones. Yeah. Except this time they're gonna have a Titanfall mech. Yeah. So like literally their action skill is gonna be a mech that drops out of the sky and you like hop into it.
It's
that's a leak. That's a rumor, but
it
would be pretty awesome. It would be pretty cool if they could do that. So, all right, cool. Wow.
If it's real, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
80-bit Podsmash.
80-bit Podsmash. All right, let's go into our main topic, and the DLC is over. All right, so we're talking about video game unions today. We're talking about labor unions in general in a lot of ways, but specifically as it applies to the video game industry. Because as it stands in 2019, there is no union for workers in the video game industry.
Right.
So game developers are the ones you hear most talked about in regards to, and they need it. They absolutely, I mean, whether or not they need it is what we'll discuss.
What side does Penguin stay on? I wonder.
There are work conditions that are bringing up the conversation one way or another. But I think it applies, I mean, as we saw with the Activision Blizzard layoffs, which is one of the things that inspired this topic, it affects more people than just developers. In fact, developers were the least affected by those layoffs. So, all right. So let's just kind of start at the beginning. A very good place to start. What's a labor union?
A labor union is, and I have a nice, concise...
Nice definition.
Definition somewhere in my notes, are important because they help set standards for education, skill levels, wages, working conditions, quality of life for all workers. Most union contracts provide far more protections than state and federal laws, so it's like a collection of workers of the bottom standing together to prevent exploitation from the top.
Yeah, so in the past, it's what you hear all about back in, the later days of the Industrial Revolution when people would go on strike. Those were unions that organized and said, if you don't afford us these basic, conditions, then we're going to just we're all going to agree to stop working together. So that's kind of how they were organized in the past. They're still organized that way. You often hear about various industries going on strike, and how it affects the economy and all that stuff. So as of right now, there's not really a way for game workers to go on strike because they don't have a union. But in general, a union is just an organization that protects the rights of workers.
We have things today like the 8-hour workday, the 5-day work week, the fact that we have weekends and disability, child labor laws. Yeah. All of those things exist because unions fought for them and affected legal change from the state and federal laws.
Yeah, so they're both a economic organization and a political organization. They do a lot of lobbying to affect work conditions. Yeah. So yeah, all those things that you talked about. But examples of unions, there's a teachers union. That's where things like tenure and all that kind of came from for teachers. There are, you often hear about like the Writers Guild, like Screenwriters Guild and Screen Actors Guild. Like so there's acting guilds. The guilds or unions out there, they're called. They were called kind of guilds back in the day. Equity is the Actors Equity is the theater version of
I was wondering what that one was called.
The Screen Actors Guild. It's called it's Actors Equity.
There's the United Auto Workers in the auto industry.
Yep,
they're also a union. Yep, and there's statistics that show German car makers pay wages way higher than any unionized worker can make. And the reasons behind that could actually bend in favor against unions.
Yeah, so
there's all kinds of things.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. We're going to dip more into that as we get further in. So we talked about what labor unions are in general. How could a labor union like looking for the gaming industry? I guess we could probably even more just jump into the next question and ask, what are recent events that have kind of brought about this conversation? Like, what are the conditions like that are contributing to this desire to unionize? So there's a need, obviously, that's present.
Right.
What is that need?
And the biggest one I can think of, well, there's two things that happened, and we mentioned this in our last episode, was the Activision layoffs and the split of Bungie from Activision. The reasons why all those things happened are detailed and complicated. And then there's the Rockstar Red Dead Redemption 2 crunch time snafu where the CEO came out and kind of bragged about we're working 100-hour work weeks. And so crunch time and oppression.
I also think about the shutdown of Telltale. Like in the way that was handled, just kind of people just being like, okay, like they didn't tell their employees or anything. They just kind of dropped them. Like there's all kinds of, the history of these abuses go back years. You often hear about people who've burned out in the industry because they can't have families. Like they work 80-hour, 90-hour work weeks during crunch times or even not during crunch times. Like, and I think it's getting worse now as you see like a lot of these games as a service games that you have crunch time right before launch, and then they launch with all these issues that then require the developers to work overtime even more.
Right.
When they should be taking vacations and enjoying the release of their games, you know what I mean? Right. Like, whatever you think about Ben Irving, who's the BioWare head developer of Anthem, like, dude got on a stream and was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to I'm hoping to go to my brother's wedding this weekend or whatever." Like, and that was like the weekend, and then that weekend there happened to be like a big loot drama thing where like they accidentally buffed the drop rates again, and they had to nerf them the next morning. So like players were like screaming and shouting, and
did he go to his brother's wedding?
I think he went, but like people were like defending. People were getting on there being like, "Dudes, like calm down. Like you're not gonna no wonder you're not gonna hear from him. He's at his brother's wedding. Like let the poor guy enjoy a wedding. Like his brother's wedding, his nuptials." But yeah, there's just all kinds of like the industry's getting way more and more complicated, and we're finding that like the people who make our games are just like, I know that Sakurai often does this to himself, but like there's all these rumors of like the dude like will work with an IV because he's just working so hard.
Yeah, he was like sick and put an IV in and kept going
just to get his like keep his fluids up or whatever. Right. It's like
it's kind of analogous to like the on-demand contractors and freelancers for the entertainment industry. Like that's why I was curious about the Hollywood side of unions, because you're a new video game developer studio, right? You start it up, you have to hire a bunch of people and make this new game. So there's this huge initiative, PR beats, community management, game development, game design, programmers, all these things all happening. And so you ramp up all your efforts and you acquire the masses and you're showing things off to your shareholders. You're getting funding. Everything's cranking out. And then the game ships. And it's just, okay, well, we don't need all these people anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to go into this new direction. We're going to court this new publisher. We're going to continue this franchise. And so we don't need this many people because we already have the foundation set up. And so there's a bunch of layoffs. And so there's this ebb and flow, this like growth and drop off of employees. And that's the nature of the video game industry.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the gaming industry is reliant on these entities of people that can be willing to and are actually able to move at a moment's notice.
Yeah,
and like switch jobs.
No, it's very analogous to the to other forms of entertainment. Like, I mean, for my brief tenure working on TV sets, because I did some like background work as a background actor when we first moved to the area, and I just talking to people there, talking to people who were on the crew, people in the cast and the crew, and there was always a question like, oh, we don't even know if the show's going to renew for another season next year, so we all might be packing up and moving to whatever. Like,
and that's the nature of TV.
There's just
normal.
There's a lot of people out there who kind of live nomadic lives, just going from job to job,
Are they
gig to
unionized?
gig, where they can get work. I'm not quite sure about crews, like film set crews. I know that actors have unions,
right?
And they're we'll get more into it as we talk about the pros and cons of unions. But there's there's a sense of like, okay, there are actors who are unionized and there are non-union actors. So there are actors who are members, and like the actors who are it's a weird catch-22 system of being involved in SAG. Like, you have to do SAG projects to be eligible to join SAG, but you can't, like, SAG eligible projects tend to hire only SAG actors. So it's like there's this weird catch-22 of like, how am I supposed to get my card if I'm not a member of the union? So there's all kinds of like, you can get acting work without being unionized. So there's advantages and disadvantages to being in a union when it comes to being an actor. Like, if you're an actor, there's going to be projects you can't do because the union won't let you, because it's not a union approved project.
Right.
So you can get more work as a non-union actor, but you won't get paid as much, and you might not be eligible for certain projects that are union, like union only. So it's complicated, and that's we'll get into that as we talk more about the cons. But but you're right, there is definitely a comparison of like, there are all these people who have specialized. I mean, I think about like A-Ray, and shout out to A-Ray, and
mocap.
like mocap actors. Like, that's going to be, you're just kind of nomadic going from job to job. Yeah, you're an independent contractor. You just kind of get whatever. There's no union for mocap actors, so yeah, it's interesting. All right, let's talk about specific work conditions, though. So we've kind of hit on a few, but are there any more work conditions that
we're seeing
are controversial and contributing to the desire to unionize?
Yes. So there was the crunch time stuff, which we'll talk about in a moment.
So we talked about hours, like long work hours.
Yeah, long days, long hard days, long hard weeks. The emphasis culturally on you being in the office versus how much time you spend at home. Yeah. Like the idea that you stayed home and didn't work for a weekend. That's, and it's a weird, because you can't discriminate officially, but culturally, kind of the stigma is, oh, this person who is trying to vouch for promotion or wants more money never works weekends, and this person who doesn't want any more money and seems to be happy, and who's like not married and doesn't have any kids, he works through the weekends and doesn't demand anything. So of course I'm not going to promote this guy when I can just have this dude over here do it. So there's like this weird cultural kind of like emphasis on working harder, and you kind of look better by not taking time off. And then on top of all of that, there is sexism and racism in the workplace that's coming out. A lot of the Me Too movement has unveiled a lot of stuff. So there's women's rights, equal pay, all these things, and they matter, and those things need to be spoken for. So that's also driving the need for unions to kind of legitimize on a actual platform level that can have a voice, that can speak politically and economically. Yeah,
there's also and this came out with there's the issue of layoffs. There's the issue of like, what are workers' rights in regards to being laid off?
Oh, yeah, that's,
and so that question's been coming a lot too. But not just with that, there's also the issue of like, Activision made it clear that they were basically just going to be straight up prioritizing developers over all these other like parts of the organization. And some of that does make sense, you know, depending on corporate strategy and all that stuff. But like when you're just straight up like cutting across the board, people are coming into work that day and they don't know if they've been, you know, laid off or not. Like, and those are people like, again, it's important to have customer service reps. It's important to have IT staff. It's important to have, like, these are the people that are also getting laid off who are working for these organizations that don't have any kind of protections. And what's even crazier is that Activision Blizzard then like reported later, they were like, oh yeah, we fully expect that these layoffs are going to negatively impact our business.
Yeah. They know it.
What?
Yeah, they're smart people. They didn't just lay off a bunch of people for no reason.
Yeah. It's crazy.
They know what's going on. It was very calculated.
Yeah. So a lot of those conditions are just, you know, those are kind of all the conditions that people kind of bring up in regards to this is the crap that we have to deal with just to make your games, to make the games that you enjoy. In general, just the sort of push to release games like at a set date before they're done just speaks to me of like a general negligence of the video game business that doesn't understand the very products that they're trying to make. You know what I mean? Like, you hear about all these, like, Anthem's a great example of a game that was like, clearly they said, oh, this game needs to be out in March of, was it March or was it I think it was February. So like, this game needs to be out in February, whether it's done or not. You know, that's like, if video game workers had more of an organization to, like, developers had an organization to back them when they say, no, the game's not done, we're going to make a decision to delay this until it's done. Like, you know, if they had more protections about their work hours and stuff like that anyways, then that would happen naturally, you know?
And then the natural next question would it be worth hiring these unionized people if they aren't going to yield to corporate decisions? Corporate decisions are then made by stakeholders who are funding them. So if a corporation doesn't make a certain decision, they lose all of their funding, they lose everything, and shut them all down. So like, there's a cause and effect to everything, and there's questions along. It's this extremely complicated economic business thing, and so like, you want to protect people because their jobs, their families matter, and you want to marry the idea of the creative process. Work's done when it's good. When we say it's done, it's not done, with business, economics, and money, and fiscal years and calendars and cycles. It's a mess.
It's a mess. So let's kind of dig into that then. Why are some reasons, like, why unionize? Why not unionize? Why are labor unions in general kind of controversial? So I guess we can kind of merge this question with the kind of pros and cons of unionization. So why don't we just kind of merge those two? So we'll start with why unionize. What are the pros of unionizing? What are some reasons why we should?
Well, we've addressed higher wages.
Work conditions.
Better work conditions.
In general, it's the rights of workers, like protecting the rights of workers. We have an article that we'll link off to from a website called Smart Assets. And it's kind of a nice little apolitical take on like pros and cons for labor unions.
Yeah.
So the first pro is, like you said, increased pay and benefits. Number two is they set up a formal process for disputes and complaints, which is great.
Everyone gets a voice. The voice can be heard.
They make political organizing easier. So that's what we talked about at the beginning, where it's like labor unions have done, like, child labor laws came as a result of labor unions. They were able to organize and lobby for those political laws change, to be in place. And then they sort of set the norms that extend to the rest of the economy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So things like minimum wage and overtime rules, those are things that, like, they can set those up to, like, set those in place. So it's kind of an extension of the legislation. It's like the legislation comes in place, and then that creates a new norm.
I gotcha.
So yeah, I guess that's what that means. The cons are a little bit more interesting because you don't hear as much about the cons, because all that sounds great. It's like, oh yeah, we want people to have better work environments, right? Like, you know, when you think of labor unions, you often, like, the image that comes to mind, I think, in a lot of people's minds is like the dungy, dank, old industrial revolution,
where you're in like a mine shaft.
Yeah, exactly.
Kids working on cars.
And the labor unions, they saved us from all of that.
Yeah.
And though there is definitely some veracity in that.
I got the black lung.
Though there is some veracity in that, it's a little bit more complicated than just that. And there's a reason why there's also a lot of organizations that don't like unions. There's a particularly large political party that doesn't like unions in general. So let's get into some of the cons. What are some of the unseen consequences of labor unions? Number one is they make it harder to promote good workers instead of not so good workers.
Interesting. So you've normalized your workforce.
Yeah, exactly. It's been accused of like cutting into meritocracy. So meritocracy says like you get promoted based on whether or not you're good.
Yeah.
But a lot of unions are structured in such a way where like, no, you have to pay the workers who are there the longest.
It's like so literally just
seniority. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the sort of salary scales that unions come up with are based on just you being there. Mm-hmm. So it makes it harder for companies to like really truly award excellence.
Okay. So that's like a morale kind of limit.
Unions can also they often do require like you to pay into the organization. So you have dues or fees. Yep. So it's like, okay, well, sure, you're vouching for a higher salary, but I have to pay a monthly fee just to be a part of your organization.
And the interesting part about this, and a lot of people also don't talk about, is the grand scheme of time with these things. There are people when the unions first started, there wasn't anyone drawing funds out of them.
Yeah.
There was only people paying into it.
Yeah.
So they ballooned and it created this mass of money. But now there's like 2 times more people reaping the benefits of pensions and retirement than there are people paying into it. And so the sustainability of the unions is being called into question.
Yeah.
And it's like this pyramid scheme of people that on the bottom are pulling all the money out really, really fast because they're not growing.
Yep.
Like there's actually a lack of drive into them now in modern society.
Yep. Unions can lead to closed culture that makes it hard to diversify the workplace and weed out bad actors.
Interesting.
So,
never heard this con before.
So they say things like each union can have distinct cultures that if you don't fit into that culture, if you don't fit into their model, it can make it hard to like people might not want to buy into your union, you know, like, and therefore what could ultimately happen is like, oh, I have to join this union to be a teacher, for example. So you might have someone who's an excellent teacher, just an exceptionally good teacher, but they're a little bit different. They don't quite fit in with the mold of teacher. Maybe they have a different approach. Maybe they have a different philosophy on teaching. They might find themselves in a situation where they're like, oh, I have to join this stupid union to be a teacher, but I don't get along. I don't agree with their philosophies, so I'm just not going to become a teacher. Yep. I'm just going to skip it all together. So if you these unions can often sometimes create a culture or can have certain requirements or standards that actually work contrary to diversity. So to which can prevent good talent from joining the union or joining the workforce altogether. So, and then finally, unions can drive up costs and lead to an adversarial relationship between the management, the companies themselves, and the labor.
Yeah.
So you get into this position where instead of the company, you've taken the workers and you've made a whole separate organization out of them instead of the workers feeling like they're a part of the culture of whatever company they're working for.
Right.
So that can't, again, so then it's kind of an us versus them mentality. And so instead of a company working in harmony, you have a company that's like, it's us versus them, Clearly they're just trying to take advantage of us. Or on the other side, you have them saying clearly they don't have any support they're just kind of looking out for themselves. They don't have support for the kind of what we're trying to build here. One can argue which tends to be more exploitative as much as you want. At the end of the day, you can certainly see a circumstance where like labor unions could be exploitative of the workers that they claim to protect.
Right.
So in general, I would say the biggest con of unions is that there is a perception of like, it's all about kind of the devil you know versus the devil you don't when it comes to trust. So I can see where a lot of people would distrust unions because you're creating another organization that can get kind of too big for its own britches, that can kind of begin to look out for its own self-interests. So the union begins to want to protect the union as opposed to actually protect the workers that they were built to protect. I can definitely see circumstances in which that would be the case.
Right.
So the union, I mean, again, so you got people, you end up getting a circumstance where like the people at the top of these unions start to take advantage of their own position and can be exploitative. So I can definitely see how that...
You need labor unions within labor unions.
Exactly. Who watches the Watchmen, I guess, is what the old phrase, the old saying is.
Yeah.
So... I can definitely, and I'm sure there are examples of that kind of thing happening too. So
probably
there's a lot of reasons why people hate unions. So back to how it applies to the video game industry with those things in mind. What is there, what are people afraid of in regards to unionization?
Well, let's see.
As it applies to the video game industry.
What are they afraid of? Why are they That's a hard question.
So, I mean, it's kind of easy.
Why are
like,
there not
why?
unions?
We've already kind of spent much of the podcast answering, like, why should the video game industry specifically unionize? And we talked about wages. We talked about work hours and working conditions, layoffs, all that stuff. We talked about all the protection. So those, we kind of already spent a lot of time talking about, they should unionize in order to protect workers from those things.
Right.
What are some negative, maybe unseen consequences as it applies to the video game industry in regards to unionization?
So then you have to go into talking about economics in the video game industry. So like the example earlier, Telltale Games went out of business. It's super strong string of hits, made a lot of money. They were unable to provide a long-term financial health to their company. Like, they could not find capital. No one thought profit could be extracted from it anymore, and so they didn't fund it. It just dropped.
Yep.
So in the modern video game world economics, you see the mobile games come out with the race to the bottom, the free-to-play, the DLC, the microtransactions, the hitting the player for every penny at a time, and it's created this kind of not unstable, but irregular gaming industry that waits on big hits like Fortnite that balloons the video game industry to look bigger and richer than it really is. And then you have, like, in that, even within Fortnite, you have whales that are making Fortnite look bigger. And Fortnite is so you have to actually look at across the whole spectrum. You can't just focus on the gaming industry. And then with Activision, it seems ridiculous that game devs would want to push for unionization that costs more with the current volatile industry landscape. Studios close and shut with no funding. Publishers use highly risky reward system of microtransactions, DLC, season passes, following the mobile success, as I just mentioned. And like, you want to put an economic burden on all of that on top of it, forcing companies to pay more for certain union workers. And so, like, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Because there's no, like, okay, in the car industry, you can predict pretty regularly, okay, this many cars are going to sell. I can make this much per day. If I have this many workers working on this many cars, it's very static.
Yeah.
With the gaming industry, it's nowhere near that.
No.
Every single day is different. People come and go. People drop you at the dime. I mean, just like we talked about the Microsoft and Sony and Epic Games and Steam and all these deals that are happening and where people ebb and flow and where everyone goes. There's no, like, through line on all of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people always cite, like, CEOs and executives get paid way too much. But they have skills, drive, they have experience, and they're business leaders. And when no one can run a $500 million company. Not everyone can run a $500 million company, right? That person is there for like, he got there because of his drive, of his workforce, of his skills, right? And then if you know that, and you talk about how, do they really deserve their pay? Well, if you look at it from the shareholder's perspective, if they can bring in one highly skilled individual as a CEO or a CFO or something that will increase that $500 million to $550 million and pay him $10 million a year and still reap $40 million a year in profit, they're doing that. And so, like, then you start looking at the scale of money from the top. That's like, they kind of earned their success.
That's debatable for sure, but I can see that. Yeah. I can definitely see how when there's no protective body in place, that's exactly the logic that shareholders and the people with the money, the people who are investing, that's exactly the logic that they're going to use. I have a hard time believing that Bobby Kotick of Activision is really the best leader and is making...
he might not be the best, but he is earning his keep.
I don't know if he's making the best long-term decisions that are going to be, sustainable for the company, you know what I mean, for Activision.
But if that was the case, then
and you make the argument that, like, they also laid off, like, hundreds and 800 workers. So how much of his paycheck is, could have been distributed to some of those workers? I mean, I know that the cultures are different. People bring up, like, the whole idea of, like, oh, well, when the Wii U is doing terribly, the Nintendo president at the time, like, cut his salary in half in order to sustain the company during that time.
But Nintendo's not drawing funding from other shareholders. Nintendo operates as its own publisher, so it's funding itself through its own sales and marketing.
I'm sure they have shareholders. I'm sure they have people at the top that...
I mean, there's investors. Yeah. And they have to satisfy those investors. Yeah.
I'm just saying that, like, I also understand that the cultures are different, too. Like, Japanese culture is different from American culture. But, I mean, Bobby Kotick and the CEO of EA, they recently made the list of the top 100 overpaid CEOs in America. So it's like... I definitely think there's
but they don't pay themselves. They're not writing their own paychecks.
Yeah.
Right? Someone's paying them, and that board of directors is allowing that pay to be there. So it's not like he's...
So the people, the CEO is just the person who's most visible. The people who are most profiting off of the work, the 80 hours of someone... blood, sweat, and tears a week.
Yeah.
Those are the shareholders. Those are the people who, what are they doing? They're just sitting in a room and throwing their money at it. Money that they probably made from some other, thing. And they're like, well, I'm going to invest in this and literally sit in my hammock all day, pushing buttons on my phone, investing. I don't know if that's the case. They probably have really high stress jobs too.
They do.
I'm probably being a little hyperbolic.
And that's like a morality issue. It's like, do you want to live in that job that consumes you? Because they have like...
It's just complicated because the very...
super restrictive contracts.
The very basic premise of labor unions in general is the people at the top wouldn't make any money. Their skills are useless. And in the grand scheme of things, yes, they're probably financial geniuses. Yes, they're probably people who can keep track of numbers in such a way.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they don't produce anything. They make nothing.
Yeah, they're just managing.
I mean, that's what the whole... I'm not saying that I'm a communist, but that's what the Marxist philosophy was, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The proletariat who are actually the people doing things and produce and create and make and fabricate. The people with skills are being the ones who have to have harder work environments because the people at the top don't actually have skills, and just their only skills is knowing how to manipulate people, essentially.
And manage money, but
managing money at the end of the day is basically just manipulating people. You know what I mean?
You could not do
I couldn't, for sure.
Like
I absolutely couldn't, but he couldn't do my job either. He wouldn't know the first way around a computer. So how...
Maybe.
That's the kind of philosophy at the end of the day, is how do you determine what skill is worth more? In the system we have now, it is clearly it's whoever makes the most money. But
that's capitalism.
That is capitalism. At the end of the day, that's kind
why
of the system in the world
exist.
that we buy into.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, like, part of the philosophy of labor unions, the reason why labor unions came to exist is because they're like, oh, we think that our skills are more valuable than you're paying us for, and we want our cut. Because if we all decide to pull out now, you will lose more than we do.
Theoretically.
Or you'll lose as much as we do.
Right.
Like, so that's kind of the... Yeah, I don't know. And so I don't really know where I land. If we were to talk about... The last question I had here was the final verdict. What do Penguin and Termite personally think about game workers unionizing? I'll say I'm torn. I genuinely am torn. I think something needs to change, though.
Me too.
Like, one way or another, the issues need to be... At the end of the day, like, whether or not the answer is a union, I don't know if I'm smart enough to determine that. But there's still problems that need to be addressed. So either the cultures of these companies need to change, and they need to be, like... They need to... Yeah, either their cultures need to change, or there needs to be a body in place that protects the workers. And unfortunately, my cynical side comes out and says, with the way that I have to just look at historical trends and the way that the past 20 years have gone, I don't think these companies are going to change their cultures to be more beneficial to their workers anytime soon. So
not if it costs them money, and they don't have to.
So in that regard, there needs to be a separate organization, in this case, a union that can form those protections. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need unions, but the world ain't perfect. So we need to, I think workers need to organize and protect themselves is kind of the bottom line there. If every developer stopped production right now, today, you bet there'd be change.
Well, that's what a strike is, right?
Exactly, yeah. And exactly, that's what I'm saying, is like, that's why I think I might lean more towards unionization, only because I have such a cynical distrust of of people in general. I think that the people who stand to gain the most are also the people who have the least motivation to make changes, because clearly they're profiting off of the backs of others right now. So why change anything?
Right.
Altruism. Unfortunately, I don't believe the true altruism exists.
Yeah, the businesses are not altruistic at all. There's no altruism. Yeah. No, so they're that's not a thing.
So the only other way that this change could enact is if we, the consumers, were to say, you know what, until you change things, we're not buying your games.
Which is why we always say vote with your dollar.
Yeah.
Don't pre-order. Don't buy microtransactions. Don't buy DLC.
Yeah, but you're really going to say, don't buy Red Dead Redemption 2 because Rockstar Games...
Some people were on that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying, is it takes a sort of internal integrity that I don't think I have as a consumer
right.
to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. I would be probably happier as a consumer if I was able to trust that there was an organization that was doing that for me. Mm-hmm. Maybe that makes me lazy. Maybe that makes me lack integrity. I guess.
This is where the developers who you're saying the corporations are making on the back of them, they're reaping, right? The developer has a skill set that they can leave. They can quit their job and go anywhere. No one is forcing anyone to work for any company. But it's all voluntary.
Sure, but then you also have. But when you say that, you can't just say that in a bubble. You're acting as if they're like, oh, I could quit tomorrow and like have 5 jobs that are like chomping at the bit to hire me, and that's not, unfortunately, reality. You know, like I have felt trapped in my job before, only because I look at the landscape of jobs out there and I say it's not worth it for me to quit my job without the guarantee of being able to find another job. Like these guys sometimes go months or years without finding a job, and then sometimes they end up working outside the field entirely. You know, they're like, well, I'm a software developer, so I guess I'll go find a software development job and stop the passion. So it's like, would you rather, I guess the question these guys face is, would you rather have a job that treats you right, or would you rather have a job that you're passionate about?
So, and that's why companies get started.
That's why
Respawn started.
Yeah.
A bunch of people left Infinity Ward and they started Respawn Entertainment.
Yeah, but that's a risk in and of itself.
It is.
What I mean, that's the thing.
That's like, part of economics.
You have to do a risk reward analysis and say, is it worth it for me to leave? And if you decide that it's not worth it for you to leave, then that's the definition of being trapped. You know, you may not have someone forcing you at gunpoint, but you can still feel like you're in a cage.
You can feel like that. But when it comes to like all of this altruistic like rights for workers that are making $60,000 a year, $60,000 a year is more than double any demographic it makes on average. You take all the men in America and you average them out, 60,000 is more than that. You take all the women in America and you average all their wages, 60,000 is more than that. You take all age groups and you average all their wages, $60,000 is more than that. And there's statistics and stuff online to back this all up. Like when I was doing my research, I don't have the specific articles to all of these things. It was just a bunch of things I was seeing about wages in the United States. And developers, software developers, game developers, they're educated. They have college degrees. Like there's a bunch of requirements. This is like...
Yeah, but if you're working 80-hour work weeks and getting paid the same amount, $60,000 a year, that you have to, if you're working double the amount of hours as someone who's making $30,000, then you're basically just making $30,000. You know what I mean? Like,
then don't work more than 80 hours a week.
But they feel like they have to, you know, the companies are pressuring them. You have to get this work done because this game has to be released now. And if you don't, you're going to lose your job. We're going to fire you.
And you're like, are you going to fire me with all this crunch? You're going to find someone to replace me and ramp them up on this project and get them to where I am?
No, they'll just fire you as soon as the project's over. So the job security comes into question. Then I'll lose all my vacation. You know what I mean? Like, who knows if they're going to be compensated, because who knows what their benefits are like, because they don't have an organization to protect their benefits.
Yeah.
It's messy, it's murky, and they don't
have an organization to protect their benefits because workers in economics don't back that up. They don't want to pay more money for the unions. They can't afford it. If the gaming industry adopted unions, we would see higher game prices, more than likely, game devs, more corporate layoffs as corporate costs go up. Unionizing across countries is pretty much impossible. Game development goes across nation boundaries, and so we would see all of this stuff that we're seeing be more volatile.
We see some short-term negative consequences, but I think we'd see better long-term payoffs. I think that we'd see better quality games, for one, because we'd have people who have rest and focus and mental energy and happiness and joy.
And those are the morale boosters that are the individual company's culture that need to be changed. And so that's why I lean against unions. Obviously, if you couldn't tell by my arguing, by my debate. But I also agree with you that there are issues that need to be addressed. And it's like, if your company is constantly forcing your employees to work 100-hour work weeks because they feel like they have to, lest they lose their job or their future work, that's bad.
Surprise, surprise. Our disagreement boils down to Termite's optimism versus Penguin's pessimism.
How about that?
Cynicism.
And there's a comparison you can draw with Silicon Valley. And a lot of these talking points I'm actually drawing from Colin Moriarty's, he has a YouTube channel called Colin's Last Stand, and there's a whole video about unionization that I grabbed a bunch of stuff from, including some of the statistics, and he makes a lot of good points. In Silicon Valley, you have a vibrant economy, you have extremely high pay, unparalleled innovation, and high production. That's already happening. Those are the 4 goals that unions have. None of that stuff in Silicon Valley is unionized.
Yeah.
And so where's the incentive? It's going to drive all the costs of everything up from every perspective.
It's true. But I feel like Silicon Valley's, a lot of their culture, they have the cultural aspects of their companies that we don't see in the video game industry right now. So you take things like Pixar and Apple and Microsoft and like those the corporate cultures, there's books on them. Yeah.
And I know inside of Pixar, they have an amazing culture that even the company I work for, Inventions, is doing studies on to kind of figure that out. And why do they have such a good culture and honoring and respecting people as people and not just letting them become numbers.
Which is exactly what unions are there to protect. So it's like, it's
unions,
doable. It's clearly doable without
a union.
Unions,
exactly.
Yes. So yeah, so I would definitely agree with you. I don't think unions are necessary until they're necessary, and so that's what I'm worried about. Is I'm worried that we're in a position right now where I don't trust these big players to really change anything themselves.
And I don't think the situation is as dire as it was at the Industrial Revolution.
No. That's true. That's true. It's kind of first world problems,
and that's why I was saying $60,000 a year is the median wage. For these people, it's like you're not talking about fast food workers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you also are talking a lot about developers. Part of what this movement is meant to do is protect more than just developers. So.
I know, like testers make way less, less money.
There's also marketing people too. There's people on the customer service side, so people doing like what I do. So whether it's technical customer service or just customer service in general, those people are highly skilled in a way that most CEOs would never understand. The value of customer service and a good customer service employee is intangible, but invaluable as well too. Yeah. So it's like, and these people are having the same working conditions, and they're having the same cultural frustrations, and they're having the same issues, fears of layoffs and stuff like that. And it's like those people probably don't get paid the $60,000 a year, and so a lot of the arguments you have are focused around developers, and that's fair. But the issue extends beyond just developers and development. And if you had all of your customer service employees too, similarly go on strike, there'd be probably you'd have some huge problems in your company. So I don't know. I just think. I don't know where I land. I'm hesitant to say that I'm just 100% about unionization, but I do think there's merits in discussion. And I think that, I don't know, I think that consumers should be more open to, like, if games cost more, but if a game costs more, but, like, I was able to trust that the people who made it were well taken care of, I'd feel better about myself. So I'd be willing to.
Would you pay more for a game that, let's say, like, the next Assassin's Creed comes out that matches the exact quality of Odyssey, something you've already seen? So we don't see an improve. What's the word? You don't see an increase.
Improvement?
Yeah, you don't see an improvement. You don't see an increase in quality of the game, but it does cost more money solely for the purposes of making workers' lives better. Would you still be okay paying more?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's
you
like,
would think most consumers would be.
You would hope most consumers would be. I mean, there's also the fact that it's like, you can say like, oh, if games don't go up in quality as a result of unions, then what's the point? But I would say if more
That's not
games...
the point I was making.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I was just trying to highlight the difference.
Yeah. Whatever. That's probably where we should probably end for the day, though.
The point I was making is the quality of games lead to higher sales, which leads to more money, which leads to more profits, which leads to shareholders willing to happen in future business deals and all that stuff.
Yep.
Whereas an increase in price just for the sole purposes of people and their livelihood would be a lot harder to draw that line directly to a profit.
Gotcha.
And that's the businessy side of the economics, the capitalism of it all.
Yeah.
That's the point I was trying to make.
All right, let's end there, though, because we're already 10 minutes over our normal, and I've got to go home and take care of my sons. So that's the episode for the day. Super controversial topic. Clearly, Penguin and Termite disagreed. Those are some of our best episodes, so we hope you enjoyed the conversation and the discussion. We want to hear your thoughts. If you think that unions are a great idea and it should have happened 2 years ago, and let's all go on strike right now, then let us know. If you think that unions are stupid, terrible, and will result in the downfall of the industry and the downfall of America, then let us know as well. We want to hear your thoughts. as long as you keep it civil, as long as you keep it polite.
I'm gonna end on this little bombshell here.
Okay.
Where this whole entire union conversation gets crazy and more complicated and convoluted is apparently the video game industry is left-leaning, and left-leaning means unionization. And so all of the articles that I tried to find on researching unions in the gaming industry specifically were all in favor of unions. Yep. Mm-hmm. The one voice that spoke out against them was the Colin Moriarty video that I got all of my sources from that kind of like unveiled a lot of the echo chamber, so to speak.
Sure, yeah.
Because again, this is the bombshell. The one, the video game media is all left-leaning. Yep. That's may or may not be debatable. And then two is left-leaning equals Democrat equals unionization pro versus economic Republican not unionization. So that's another bombshell. All these things we can have debates and talks about, but I just wanted to give Colin Moriarty the credit he is due. If you heard my points, my talking points that were against unionization, please go to his YouTube channel, Colin's Last Stand, and check him out and listen to his video. He goes into way more depth than I did. I just pulled tidbits from it to try and help this conversation go along to bolster my ideas, because I'm ignorant on unions. I didn't know. I learned more about unions in preparation for this episode than
like the last 2 hours than you did ever before.
And so like I was in previous episodes we talked about my ignorance of unions, and so thanks Colin for that, and thanks.
Yeah, and we definitely couldn't do this conversation justice in the hour. Yeah, less than that, because we spent time talking about news and stuff, so really didn't get started. So we spent maybe 40 minutes on this conversation, and to try to unpack one of the most complicated discussions in America, much less just the video game industry in 40 minutes. Obviously, we didn't do justice. So if we miss things, if we miss talking points, if there's things that we didn't bring up, if you have thoughts, then please feel free to share them with us. Where can they share their thoughts with us, Termite?
You can find us at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website where we have links to Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. If we're not on a platform that you want us to be, let us know and we'll put ourselves there. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit, all 80bit Podsmash. 80bit Podsmash, nothing uppercase, no hyphens, nothing weird. Please go to subreddit, go to our subreddit, and leave a thread talking about unions. Let us know what you think. Share us on Facebook. You might be called a gamer.
No. Oh gosh.
Tag us on Twitter if you're excited about a game, you're playing a game. You take a picture, post it on Instagram, tag us in it. Hit us up with what you're playing, what you're doing. Video games are
awesome. Well, have a good week, everybody.
See you next week.
Try not to kill someone who's pro or anti-union. Bye.